Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here today. It's maybe the last time I'm speaking to humans. When we are developing 5G, we probably will have to discuss more with machines. Let me give you some figures to start with. We have reached 3 billion subscriptions worldwide using 3G networks and 3G technologies by the end of last year. We have just overpassed 1 billion connection subscriptions worldwide on LTE on 4G. And some predictions tell us that by 2020, which is actually tomorrow, we're going to get 50 billions of subscriptions for machine to machine. I've not seen the figures for 2025 or 2030, but I'm sure we'll go much higher in numbers of figures. And so we have a challenge to face. And this is what probably will drive us when we are developing 5G. At Orange, we are very committed to 5G. We are working very much in the European organizations, in the European projects, but also in standards organizations who are just starting the work on 5G. We think that there are a couple of areas where we need to put, I would say, emphasis on 5G. The first one, of course, an increase of the average throughput for customers. That's, I would say, a normal way. But very likely as well, lowering down the throughput for very specific connectivity for some specific machines. So we should not forget it as well. And the number of connections sometimes is also a big issue for us on the network side. The second, we tend to forget it, but we have a number of, I would say, the energy that we're consuming to make all these things working is increasing exponentially with the traffic. And this is for us at Orange, and many operators as well, a key area where we need to be much more efficient than we used to be in the past. Not only on mobile devices, but also on the network sides. So we have to be very cautious, and for us, this is a very key area that we need to put pressure on. In some countries, at least for instance in Orange, the cost of energy is between 5 to 10% of the total revenue of the operator on the national OpCo, not in the European countries yet, but we don't know how the oil price will go on. And so this is an area where we'd like to put, let's say, emphasis as well. The third part is what kind of business case that we're looking at. I've said machine to machine is an additional one on top of what we're the existing ones. Definitely yes, and this is why we believe at Orange that we need to work more and more with what we call the verticals. And we need to build horizontal platforms as operators to ensure that we are able to work with the verticals with their specific needs and their specific, I would say, requirements. So again, throughput is one of them, but very likely latency is another one. So we need to reduce latency. I don't know what will be the use cases that we're going to create. I can tell that 10 years ago, Facebook didn't exist, but today we are all using it on our smartphones. So I don't know exactly what will be the use cases. I don't know exactly what will be the services that will take off with 5G when it's taking off. But very likely what we need to do is something which is horizontal that will support verticals. And when you want to support verticals, there is a new notion in 5G that for us is very important, interesting, which is what we call the network slicing. So the network slicing, not just in one sentence, is to say we can already do it today on our networks, but it's cumbersome, it's complicated, it's something which is not standardized, and so we need to do things by our own as every single operator. If we do put things in the standard network slicing, we believe that it will be much easier to respond to the vertical needs and so on. To do this, we need the verticals to be involved in the standardization processes, and today there are not enough. So my urge today, or my ask, would be that we would like to get these guys working with us in the standardization organizations as well to ensure that we are capturing their requirements on time and not by 2020. It will be too late. The requirements will be done in the next 2 years. Third, spectrum. 5G is not just new spectrum. We have to be able to reuse the existing spectrum. There is no question on this. There is not enough capability to get and to recoup spectrum anywhere else. You know the story. I would be tempted, and I've said that to a meeting recently, that the WRC-15 was not that much of a success, unfortunately, on getting more spectrum for 5G, at least at the European level, because we were not able to agree all together. That's an area that we need to be a bit more coherent and cohesive. So that's one part. Second, on spectrum, we strongly, firmly believe that in Orange that we need to support the licensing spectrum way of working. It's a good way to have a predictable access to spectrum and get also the nice and proper spectrum to make things working. When you are starting to use unlicensed, you never know what will be the interference level, and I'm sure that you're facing this every day with your Wi-Fi connections, which is an example of what we can get tomorrow if we're not doing the right things. So we have to be a bit cautious about this as well. The fourth one is timing. No, 5G will not start next year. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, whatever is presented, and many people of you have been at the Mobile World Congress, there were a lot of announcements, but what we think, what we want is a standard first. And the standard has its roadmap. This roadmap is done by the entire ecosystem, and we can't, I would say, escape of it. And it will be the first release, and I say the first release is the very first release, will be ready, assume, in 2018, approximately. When we say 2018, it means that you need 2 years before you get products. I'm really saying real products, not only chipsets, an end-to-end product. And so we think that when we will be able to start the first 5G commercial launches by 2020. Of course, before, we will have to make trials, as we did in the past for every previous, I would say, generation of mobile networks. And of course, we can start by 2018 with the vendors, the people interested, and Orange will be committed to this as well. But to be realistic, 2020 is very likely the first dates where we can get first commercial, fully standardized solutions on the market. Finally, we need money. And to have money, I just would like to give one figure. In these days, the US operators are investing twice the capex that we are investing in European countries. I don't know if your colleagues, friends, family in the US look at their bills every month. They are quite high. They are quite high compared to what we have in Europe. But at the end of the day, on the 4G side, they have been much faster. We can't invest if we are not certain to get the appropriate revenues from our customers. And that's something that's on which we have to be, I would say, a bit cautious. Yes, we need to be fast. Yes, we need to have a political agenda to put things forward and to move the things forward. But we need to ensure also that we have the proper economical environment for operators to invest. Finally, when we move to 5G, I've said that the average throughput will increase, and so on and so forth. The story of 5G is not only a story of access. The story of 5G will be a story of backhaul, of the network. You can't provide hundreds of megabit per second or gigabit per second to customers without a fibered network in the back end. And that will take some time, that will take resources, and that is a lot of investments. And not only just on the backhaul, on the big pipes, but also up to the base stations. And this is where we're going to get difficulties if we don't have the right environment. Again, to do all these things, we will need to have a secure environment where we can ensure that we can invest as operators, and this is what we would like to do. Finally, just to conclude my talk, 5G, we are very committed at Orange. We're working very much on standards to ensure that we're going to get the proper standards, and I think that by 2020 we should be able to see the first commercial launch in Europe. Thank you.